Welcome to Pub Natter, where we record each episode in a different pub in Rutland, the smallest county in England. In each episode, your hosts, Tim and Justin, give a voice to the landlords and landladies and a special guest with a specific area of interest or expertise. We hope you enjoy our chats and it encourages you to go and explore our little county and all it has to offer. Like the motto says, there is much in little. This episode was recently recorded at the Fox at North Luffenham in Rutland. We chat with the owner, Jason Allen, who is also the Chair of Discover Rutland. Our special guest is Gina Bradbury, who is the director of the Outdoor Guide and business partner to her sister and TV presenter, Julia Bradbury, who both have strong connections to Rutland. When rain stops play, it's time for some pub natter. So we're in the Fox in North Luffenham with Justin.
Evening.
And
excuse me.
Two special guests, Jason Allen, who is the owner.
Welcome.
And also the Chair of Discover Rutland.
Absolutely.
And Gina Bradbury, who is the director of the Outdoor Guide and business partner to her sister Julia Bradbury.
Exactly.
So, first of all, we're going to kick off with Jason. Just give us a bit of background. Are you originally from this area?
A little bit of background about me. Well, I grew up in East Northamptonshire, so Oundle area. My career took me down to London, where I had a retail background. So I worked for Homebase for 13, 14 years. Obviously, the demise of it recently. But I went through the A-level management training program, so I was a store manager, then I went into logistics and distribution, I was a distribution centre manager, and my career took me down south to their head office in Wallington, in Surrey, and I did that up until the age of around 32, and then I think I had an early midlife crisis, thinking I want to work for myself.
I think everybody should have at least 3 midlife crises.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I'd always had the desire to own a pub, and I had an interest in property as well. So I scoured the length and breadth of the country. I probably looked at somewhere in the region of 20 pubs or hotels at the time while I was still working full-time. And I came across the King's Arms at Wing, so that was my first pub in 2002.
Oh, right, okay.
So
which has recently had a sad demise.
It certainly has, yeah, very sadly.
Any hope that it might reopen, or is it?
I would be hopeful, but I think the state of the pub market at the moment, what I think what the pub really needs is probably a freeholder to buy it and invest in it. It may reopen. But back in 2002, it was the start of sort of, I suppose, the gastro-type pub food. So I refurbished that and traded that for 2 years, and then made the decision to lease that out, so I retained my freehold interest. But at that point, I then bought the Horse and Jockey at Manton.
Oh, wow. Another really nice pub.
A nice pub.
All of these my dad frequents.
Yeah?
Oh, God, yeah. I mean, the King's Arms, and the Horse and Jockey.
Yeah.
That's right, yeah. So I bought that one in 2004, refurbished it. And again, that became, we created a little bit of a monster there, really, because I bought it off a brewery, and it was always in the sort of bottom end of the portfolio of pubs because it hadn't had any investment. But of course, it was ideally located on Rutland Water, so I think we became known very quickly as the cyclist choice, shall we say.
Yeah, there's always thousands of bikes outside there in the summer, isn't there?
That's right, yeah. It's a good pit stop to refuel, I think, is the best way to put it. Yeah. So, yes, that became very popular. And I should say that I've got a very good team, and I've still got the team that I had from the King's Arms. I've got 2 members of staff now that work for me, that have worked for me over 20 years.
Wow.
Richard and Kay. So they were the bedrock of that pub, really. So I had the Horse and Jockey.
And is the food an integral part of your offering?
Here, well, I since sold the Horse and Jockey, so if we move on, so the Horse and Jockey was Good wholesome home cooked pub food.
So not the gastro type. More.
The horse and jockey was more baguette and chips, I should say. Most of the cyclists had quite a quick turnaround. They needed a few carbs for their onward journey around the water. We built, as I say, a little bit of an animal there. I think the most we ever did for lunch was around 420 between 12 and 4 on a bank holiday, and then that's going some, I can assure you.
Wow.
Oh my God!
It's a small village pub, not particularly big kitchen area, but we just tailored the menu to be able to get them in and out again. And as I say,
were you
on
popular
their
with
cycles.
the neighbours? Were you popular with the neighbours?
Well, I think one thing we struggled with, in fairness, was not the engagement with the village, but obviously, as a villager, do you want to go down your local pub where there's lots of cyclists? And although we try to prioritise local people, they were queuing. So I think locals realised it was best to leave us alone in the summer. Then in the winter months, when it was a little quieter, come in and support us then. So I had the horse and jockey, and at that point in time, we were living in North Luffenham, in fact, directly opposite the pub. And the Fox, or the Fox and Hounds, or the Fox where we are now, but previously was named the Fox and Hounds, was a Marston's pub, and it had been it's fair to say, had 5 tenants in as many years. And I always pulled out of the drive every morning and went home and said to my other half, that pub's got potential, but only if they put it on the market freehold. And one day they did. Oh. It was a difficult one at the time because the horse and jockey was doing very well, and it occupied an awful lot of my time. But I said, you do realise if I don't put an offer in for the Fox and Hounds and give the village a decent pub, if somebody else does it, we're going to have to move, because I'll pull out the drive every day and say, I wish I'd have done that. So I took the plunge and bought the Fox, and I had the Fox and the horse and jockey for 6 of those 14 years at the horse and jockey. So we had 2 pubs operating for that 6-year period.
Wow. Sorry, why did you drop the hounds? Was that to avoid getting petrol bombed by PETA?
I think, there's many reasons really, but I think I wanted to give the pub a new. So when I bought the pub, I didn't want to trade it in its current form. So it didn't look anything like this. We closed it for 12 months, and we went through a complete refurbishment. So rewire. We had to have new water supply, new gas supply, and when we relaunched it, I thought, when I looked around the county, we've got the Fox at Exton, we've got another Fox and Hounds at Exton, Fox and Hounds at Dossington. And we started looking at our marketing, and I thought, well, if I was looking for a website, I wanted the Fox Rutland, because, very passionate about Rutland. So I thought, we'll change the name, we'll just drop the Hounds, and then we will be the only Fox in the county, and as we still are. So.
Well, if they do turn us back into Leicestershire, at least it'll be appropriate.
Exactly,
you
that's
took the
going to be
words
different.
out of my mouth, actually. I was just about to say.
Yeah. So our vision for this was, we wanted to create a pub and an environment that the village deserved. The pub at that point had only just had the other pub in the village, the Horse and Panniers, affectionately known as the Nag and Bag, that had closed. So this was the only pub. So we wanted to welcome everybody. So we wanted a lounge area where people could just sit and drink. We wanted a restaurant area. And upstairs we've got a games room with a dartboard, and we have a darts team. So we wanted to create something for everybody, really. And I think,
as a pub should be.
And I think in this day and age, that's what you have to be to survive. Yeah. We're very lucky. The village were very supportive. I think because of our longevity in the county in this industry, a lot of people probably followed us from the horse and jockey, or our regular customers as well. But now we attract from quite a wide area: Stamford, Uppingham, Oakham, and further afield. So I think so. As you can see this evening, it's a Thursday evening. This is typical, and I think a unique thing for us is we are 50% wet, 50% food. So we're very strong on food, as you can see, but our turnover is 50-50, which is quite unusual for a village pub, because we do have a good drinking trade at the bar, and we have something above the bar which says everyone, there's no strangers here, just friends that haven't met. And
that's really nice.
And I think that's quite... that's something we really pride ourselves on, because you come in here, the drinkers create an atmosphere which makes it welcoming for the diners when they come in.
I think the atmosphere is great here. I'm trying to paint a picture to our listeners. We've got a really nice bar area, and there's people opposite us who are having a meal which is much more quiet, more dimly lit. And one of my passions is having a bar, because I think it's really important that you're able to go and sit where you want to sit. And if you're lonely or if you're on your own, you want to be able to strike up a conversation with somebody else. I think that's really important. And you've got it. I mean, you've got it all here.
Yeah,
it's really
no,
nice.
And dogs. There's a dog.
Yeah.
There's a big dog there.
Yeah. And got to say, I'm currently drinking Blue Monkey, which is a really great pint, and it's well kept. So well done. Cheers.
Thank you.
And since I've come over to the dark side, since I've been doing this malarkey, I'm drinking a pint of, what is it?
You're drinking
Jeffrey Hudson.
JHB from Peterborough, from Oakham Ales. So that's probably our most popular real ale. It's a sort of pale ale, 3.8. It's a session ale, really. But we pride ourselves on our real ales. We have 4 on at all time. And we touched on it earlier. It's not difficult to keep real ale. You've just got to do the volume, keep your lines moving, clean your lines regularly. We have our barrels on tilters, so we don't, in the old style, having to chop them up anymore. They're on springs, so they're just gravity fed. So, we pride ourselves on hopefully every single pint being what you've got, which looks quite clear to me.
And our listeners some of my listeners might not be aware, but you've only got 4 days once you open a barrel to drink it.
Yeah, you have really. We do enough volume that fortunately we don't have any, and we do them. So we keep 4 real ales on. We have the JHB, which, as I say, is a good session ale. We also have a beer called the Fox. We've got a very good relationship with the grain store, so we call it the Fox, although it is triple B in disguise.
Right.
So if any of your listeners come in and want a grain store triple B, they'll have to order the Fox.
We were there last night.
I think the Olive Branch said that they...
Yeah, they call it the Olive, I think.
They wanted...
Olive oil.
Olive oil, that's right.
No, they originally wanted to call it olive oil, but they had stopped them from the trades descriptions people, powers that be, stopped them from doing it because people might have thought I wanted olive oil. So they had to call it something else. I think they call it olive or something.
I'll have to speak to Ben. But I'll get the story. But
can I be really stupid and ask what a session ale is? Because when you say, it's a session ale, what does that mean?
It's not strong.
Oh, it's weak.
It's usually below 4%.
And and the session being you're having a session.
Okay.
Hence, 4, 5, 6, 7 pints, and you probably leave on two limbs rather than 4.
In fairness, we very rarely, unless we have a beer festival, we very rarely go over around 4.5.
Really?
Occasionally we'll have a 5%, so we get grain store 1050 or electric landlady or something like that. So
now you're talking. Big shout out to Baker's Dozen.
Absolutely.
Jill and Dean.
Yeah, that's right.
They sorted out Christmas and New Year for me this year.
Oh, did they? Right.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah. So, and then we have 2 other guest real ales. So the two end pumps. We have a list of probably 15, 16 microbreweries. And we do it on a rotation basis. We try not to repeat. After 10 years, that we do occasionally, but we only do that if they're popular with our regulars. So we get lots of requests as well. So.
No, I was going to ask how you describe your food.
Delicious.
Good.
Absolutely. I mean, it's fantastic.
Do you cook or do you have chefs?
No. I don't cook. Richard, who, as I said, has been with me over 20 years. Richard's in the kitchen. Richard resides upstairs as well. How would we describe the food? Good, wholesome, home-cooked pub food. If you haven't had a fox pie, then I would recommend you've got to try it.
Big fan of pies.
You won't beat a fox pie. It's a proper pie, short crust pastry. We actually make the pies as you would at home. A big pie, nice, thick, meat inside them. Occasionally we'll do chicken and bacon pie as well, but pie is probably our signature dish, shall I say. So
you like a pie, Gina?
I had a pie. I had a pie today.
Had one this evening.
Had one this evening with mash and veg.
My cousin loves a pie, but he gets very angry if it's a dish with a pie crust on. It has to be a pie with its own sides.
Yeah. And the base, have a base as well. Yeah, that's what it was.
He gets very, very upset if it's
what I can guarantee you get here, you get a chunk of Desperate Dan pie. It is a proper chunk. So you won't go home hungry, I can assure you.
And no foxes were harmed in the making of this pie.
No foxes in the middle of it. But no, our menu is varied. You know, we tailor it. We have specials on as well, so things like beef bourguignon. We're also very sensitive to people's, you know, dietary requirements as well, gluten-free, that sort of thing. So, so as I say, we try and keep it as varied as possible. We do use local butchers, yeah. Wherever possible, we use local ingredients because it's, you know, we're very conscious of, like most people are nowadays, of food miles and that sort of thing as well.
That's cool. I interrupted you.
Sorry, I was just going to ask, do you know much about the history of the pub, the building? Because one of my usual spots is I tell people a little bit of the history of the pub. I couldn't find out anything. I've got some things to say about North Luffenham in a moment, but nothing about the pub.
Yeah, it's difficult. It was a coaching inn many years ago, and when I bought the pub, you'll probably notice if you pulled into the car park, there's some old barns outside, the front bit being the old toilets, when toilets were outside. But some old plans I have is when those barns continued right to the back, right the way along the back, and it was a proper coaching inn.
So what was North Luffenham on the way to? Where you would, you know, because obviously there's lots of coaching inns in places like Ware, which were on the old Great North Road, but
I can't really answer that, to be honest with you. I don't know the history in that detail.
What about the age? It must. Well, if it's coaching,
16th century.
Wow.
Yeah, 16th century inn.
That is old.
That is very old.
Yeah. Have you got any of the original buildings still here?
Yeah, well, I think it's part of the. I mean, this is Grade 2 listed, so things like the chimneys are listed, the windows on the front are listed, and the barns at the side are listed. So, as I say, the plans that I have got show all the stabling at the back, so from many years ago.
Right. Wow, that is old.
Well, I can't tell you anything about the pub, but I can tell you a few things about North Luffenham, some of which you'll almost certainly know since you live here, but it's the first time I've ever been to North Luffenham, despite having lived in Rutland since 1997.
Really? Right, okay.
I might have been through it on the way when I got lost going to the tip.
Absolutely, yeah.
Good old tip down the road. Old tip. Yeah, the old tip.
That's quite handy, actually. Living in the village, you don't have to go too far when you're doing your gardening.
Well, it was only when Cottesmore was closed during lockdown, and of course during lockdown you created so much rubbish because you had nothing else to do.
Yeah.
And so I did visit that tip a few times. I think I might have missed a turning once. I ended up coming through North Luffenham, but I was quite surprised to find out that the settlements here go back as far as the 5th century. There's evidence of.
Yeah, quite possibly. And if you go down Glebe Road, which is actually where I live, behind us we've got what is classified an ancient monument, which is just a ground formation, but that's where they believe there were settlements before. So that is a protected monument. So
the local church is the St John the Baptist Church.
That's right.
The bulk of that goes back to 1300s. So it's incredible, really, when you think that. America wasn't discovered until 1492. So there's stuff here that's 200 years older than 400 years older than the country. And the rector of that church, an archdeacon called Robert Johnson, is actually the founder of both the Oakham and Uppingham schools.
Right, okay, I didn't know that.
And when he started those schools, they were free grammar schools. And he instigated them for the purpose of educating people that couldn't afford an education.
Wow. And
local poor children would go to these schools and learn Latin and Greek and all the things that they're not allowed to learn anymore.
That's amazing.
Not quite as free now. But
just to give some context, you're probably talking close to about £30,000 a year.
I would guess at that 20 to 30, I would have thought for either of those.
Once you've
schools
added
now.
all the kind of bits on, like...
There's probably 30 now with the VAT.
That's for
Wasn't the grammar school, though, that became Uppingham Community College? That used to be a grammar school, because I went there.
Ah.
I went to the community college, but when it turned into the comprehensive.
Right.
That was back in 1973.
Oh, you're a similar age to me then, because I went to a grammar school in West London where I grew up, and that became a comp when I was in about the 3rd or 4th year. That was about 74, something like that.
So Uppingham...
But these grammar schools are now the public schools up in Morecambe. But back then, he founded them as free schools, which is in the 15-somethings.
Wow.
Which is quite incredible, really. Apparently in the church there are 31 Commonwealth war graves, including 11 Canadian airmen who died serving in the Royal Canadian Air Force Base at North Luffenham.
Yeah, that's
be of
correct,
interest to you, having spent 22 years in the Royal Air Force. And I also found that North Luffenham has got one very notable figure.
Here we go. He was teasing me about this earlier on. Well, can you think who that is?
Usually when small places have big names, the big name might have been born there or passed through there or something, but they don't end up living there. But this chap actually was born and lived in the village his whole life. And his name was Vincent Wing. And he is, as far as I can tell, he's nothing to do with the village of Wing. Do you know about Vincent Wing?
I don't know. Enlighten me.
Well...
We're hanging on to your every word.
In his time, he was a hugely influential... and at this time, I only just discovered this afternoon during my minutes and minutes of intensive research, that he was an influential astronomer and astrologer, and the two were not mutually exclusive back in the 1500s. There was a lot of thought that both were valid sciences.
They are, aren't they?
Well...
They were.
I'm sure you think that. And this was in addition to his day job as a land surveyor. And when he wasn't studying the stars, both physically and figuratively, he was developing the use of chains and rods. You know, the old-fashioned measurements.
Yeah, chain and rod measurements.
For those that don't know, a chain is the length of a cricket pitch.
Right, I didn't realise that, but I know the old measurement.
Yeah.
You mean the whole cricket pitch, or just the
strip,
stump to stump?
Oh, right, okay.
66 feet, which is a chain, 22 yards.
Yeah.
And they form the basis of acres. 10 chains is a furlong, and so on. So all those old-fashioned measurements. I don't think he invented them, but he was instrumental in developing them and using them for surveying land. Back in the day.
It's really interesting. I came across chains in terms of measurements when we bought a house down Glebe Road, and we've got a house next door to us which is a grade 2-star Voisey, who was a very famous arts and crafts architect, and there was a little bit of a dispute over boundary, and the chap who was next door produced plans, and it was all measured in chains. And I'd say, well, what's that? And that's how I learnt all about that.
I didn't even know that existed.
Yeah.
Never heard of it
and
before.
rods are the other one, which are a very odd measurement. They're 1/320th of a mile, so it's like 15.5 feet or something, which is...
Where did that come from?
I think it came from the length of a centurion's staff.
Really?
Wow.
Going back to the Roman times, something like that, yeah.
Wow.
So when he wasn't measuring land, which was his day job, he published, among other things, the very first English language book on astronomy.
Wow.
A book of astrology, a copy of which was found in Isaac Newton's study, with copious notes in the margins from the man himself.
Blimey.
Wow.
He also spent 20 years producing annually a book of something called, and I might get this wrong, ephemerides or ephemerides, something like that.
Sounds like a Greek name.
It very much sounds like a Greek name. And these were tables that predicted the positions of the stars and the planets 8, 10, 12, 15 years in the future, which were used by sailors to navigate at sea And because they didn't know how long their voyages might take, it was no good just having this week's charts, because they could be at sea for years on various voyages. And so these charts would let them know 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the track where the stars were supposed to be and the planets then. And they were allegedly the most accurate of the time.
Wow.
And
so was this guy alive at the same time as Isaac Newton? Or?
no, Isaac Newton read his book among many others.
Yeah.
There was a lot of controversy at the time. There were lots of other astronomers, and there was a long-running dispute between him and a chap called Street. And they actually wrote books where they specifically challenged the views of the other one, and the books were titled to prove the other bloke wrong, basically. And this went backwards and forwards for about 5 years.
Times haven't changed much.
And curiously, most of the measurements he took at Stanford. So even then, there were people that thought Stanford was the centre of the universe. So things don't change, do they? and sadly, the poor old chap, he died at just the age of 49 of consumption.
Oh. Wow.
So that's what I've got to tell you about North Luffenham.
About North Luffenham.
It's responsible for quite a bit in its way.
Well, bringing it up to modern day, I think one thing North Luffenham sort of prides itself on, I think, is the fact that it's a mixed community. The village has sort of grown over many years, but it's blended well. So we've got the older properties, but we've got a thriving primary school. We've got the village oval, and we've got a cricket team that and I'm led to believe there's only 2 official ovals in the country, as in terms of cricket, the Oval and the Oval in North Luffenham in terms of name. But so we've got a very active cricket team, we've got a bowls club, and a great sense of community as well. And I think that's just been built up over the years.
Wow.
And is there any kind of rivalry or affinity with South Luffenham?
Well, North Luffenham's obviously
Superior.
superior, but no. Do you know what? I think we have a garden club in the village, and we have an awful lot of members from South Luffenham as well. I think they complement each other. I think villages in Rutland should complement each other, and certainly we've always had that philosophy from the pub point of view. There's enough business to go around if you're confident in what you're doing. We work locally with a lot of businesses, and.
So the other thing that you do, Jason, is that you're the chair, correct me if I'm wrong, of Discover Rutland.
That's right.
Yeah. So tell us about that.
So Discover Rutland is the destination management organisation for Rutland, which I suppose in old speak is the tourist board. So it's a voluntary organisation made up of representatives from the tourism industry. So
the council doesn't have effectively a tourist board. That's what you're saying.
No, you carry on.
So basically, we are relying to Rutland County Council in terms of our administration, but we have a committee that drives Discover Rutland members from the industry. So basically, I chair. We have Ben Jones from the Olive Branch, who's vice chair. We have James Torbell, who you all know from Uppingham. He's on the committee. Jake Williams from Anglian Water, and Nitesh from Rutland Web Design, and Vicky Bingley from Nimble Media. So we're all local, we're all very passionate, and basically our main objective is to ensure a sustainable visitor economy in Rutland. People sometimes are a little bit surprised when I say tourism last year, 2023, which is the last figures we have, brought £170 million to Rutland in terms of the economy.
Wow.
We get 1.5 million visitors a year, and it sustains the equivalent of about 1,400 full-time equivalent jobs.
So that means they spend about £15 each?
Well, it varies.
Good maths.
£150 each, sorry.
It varies, because out of those 1.5 million visitors, only 18% of them are overnight stays. The rest are day visitors, because obviously Rutland Water, which is sort of the jewel in our crown, so to speak, gets an awful lot of day visitors, so their average spend is lower. So,
can I just interrupt a sec? How do you know there's 1.5 million visitors a year?
Okay, so there is a company that creates something called the Steam reports. It's a company that does trending on visitor economies across the whole of the UK. So they're recognised by government, local councils, local tourist boards, and it's all trend-based analysis. So they produce data, and they have done for the last 20, 25 years, based on visitor economy. So Visit England use them as their prime indicator. It's a very, very complicated model.
Yeah.
I don't claim to know all the inputs, but certainly there's a lot of local businesses that sort of contribute towards those sort of figures and statistics. The most important thing is this is a trend-based analysis, so it gives us an indicator as to where we sit, and we can compare ourselves to neighbouring counties, regions, similar areas.
So how are we doing?
It's a lot easier since COVID because we all agreed to have the trackers injected into us.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've got a friend in America who's listening to this going, yeah.
So how are we doing? Do you know what? I believe if you think of Rutland as the visitor economy underpins the economy, basically. We're very much agriculture driven in our county. The schools, Uppingham and Oakham School, contribute significantly in terms of employment and bringing money. But, beyond that, we've got a lot of good businesses, don't get me wrong. But the visitor economy is what really, really supports us. And I think certainly from the pub industry, it's my only anecdotal view, but the visitor economy is the icing on the cake for most pubs in terms of, and you asked me earlier about, where do our customers come from? We also have a little campsite up on Rutland Water, and that feeds the pub during the summer months. And as I say, if you took out the visitors, a lot of pubs would just not be viable.
How does Stamford interact with Rutland? Does it add to our visitor numbers? Does it soak up potential visitors?
No, I think we work in partnership with Stamford. Stamford's obviously, we don't see county borders. In fact, we see Stamford as an opportunity, because if you think of Stamford, Oakham and Uppingham, it's the Golden Triangle. And what have we got in the middle? We've got a big pond. And, I think we pride ourselves in Rutland. We are the recreational playground to some extent of the East Midlands, whether it be fishing, walking, cycling, sailing. We've got, we're very proud of our culture and our heritage. And I think, a lot of people come to visit Rutland. We've very often been compared recently to the Cotswolds. And I think if you look at, how quintessential our market towns are and our villages, we've got 52 villages across the county. What a perfect place to come and spend a weekend. And the thing is with Rutland as well, it changes its guise in the winter. So, there's lots of activities you do in the summer in Rutland. You've got the water park. But in the winter, what's better than coming and spending an afternoon wandering around Uppingham and then going to a pub, open fire, country fire, because what we have is very unique. So,
and it's in the middle of the country. It's, really accessible.
It's accessible, And as I say, recreational, we're on the A1 corridor. So we work in hand with Stamford, very, very, very much. We see that as an asset, because one of our main objectives is to try and convert people from day visitors to overnight stays, because naturally they're spending a lot more money in the economy. And the other thing, we want to try and elongate the seasons as well. So, it pretty much looks after itself from Easter through to September, but we want to sort of try and enhance and get more visitors in those shoulder seasons. So the sort of things we do, we attend shows across the country. So this year we're actually going to the Game Fair. So we have a unit which we will be taking to promote Rutland. The Game Fair gets around 140,000 visitors. Wow. So we'll be promoting Rutland to try and encourage people to come and visit. And I know that sometimes is a little bit controversial, because local residents might think, well, we don't want any more visitors to Rutland. But without the visitors to Rutland, that, and it's that discretionary spend as well. Yeah. If somebody comes as a day visitor, they still might go into Oakham and buy something in a shop or fill it with petrol at the petrol station. So, it's good. We don't want to be a Cotswolds with 52-seater coaches rolling through every village, but so there is a balance.
He was there last week.
I was in Stowe-on-the-Wold on Wednesday.
Right.
Never been there before. Didn't realise it was so close, but yeah, very nice. But
God, Well, that's two different places in different places you've been to in 2 weeks. Stow on the Wold and North Luffenham.
The world's just opening up for me.
It is, my God. You'll be getting jet lag soon.
Well, I think he might have got a bit of a nosebleed when he left.
Yeah, I know, exactly. Melatonin.
So as a Discover Rutland as an entity, we have 140 members across the county who pay an annual subscription, and that's our only income. Really, that's what sort of generates our income to promote the county. So they range from hotels, restaurants, retailers, etc. And coming back to your opening question, we are sort of aligned to the council in terms of our financials, so we use them for invoicing. We have a tourism officer 3 days a week from the council who really works alongside us to enable what we deliver, really.
Well, because of tonight, we're meeting you. This week I discovered Discover Rutland. I had never heard of it until Tim mentioned that's what you did, literally. And I Googled it, and it's an absolutely fantastic website. It's really, really good. And I don't understand how I've never even known that it exists.
Because you live it. You're not a tourist.
Rutland is a great place to visit, work, live, play, etc. Work, as well. We produce the Discover Rutland biannual visitor guide, and gosh, we distribute those all around the county. So that's with fresh editorial aligned to the seasons. You're right, our website, we get around 25,000 hits on the website a month. So, if you're a member of Discover Rutland, you get to go on the website. There's lots of benefits of being a member of Discover Rutland. And again, all you're doing is just reinforcing how important it is and enabling us to continue doing the work we do. And we're trying to encourage more. One of the things that we're going to launch this year is a Rutland Ambassadors scheme, where we're looking for individuals in the county that have got a passion for Rutland and what Rutland stands for, who want to join us to come to some of the shows.
So if you're listening to this and you want to be an ambassador for
Rutland,
get your
pitchfork out.
And get your pitchfork out, how do people become an ambassador?
Well, if people are seriously interested, then they can contact me directly at the Fox in North Luffenham. Alternatively, if they go onto the Discover Rutland website, our contact details are on there and they can email us.
A couple of things about Discover Rutland I'm curious about. When did it start? Was it a couple of people had a bright idea to start it, or
no? So Discover Rutland, we're going back now to sort of 2008-9. It was more a tourist board, so it was in a very different form to what it is today. In 2010-11, Anglian Water built the lagoons down at Eggleton. And part of that, I think it was sort of Section 106 money at the time it was referred to. They had to stum up quite a sizable amount of money to Rutland County Council, to the tune of, I think, about £500,000 at the time. And the basis of that was that it had to be there to promote Rutland in terms of tourism. Some went to market towns, etc. And at that point, Rutland County Council created a post of a full-time tourism officer and a full-time tourism manager. That lasted for sort of 3 years, at which point the money ran out and industry were, I think it's fair to say, were basically encouraged to take ownership of it themselves because there wasn't the money to support these roles anymore. And that's when Discover Rutland was formed in its current form in terms of a membership organisation, so it became self-sustainable. But you'd be surprised if you look at it from a sort of business point of view. We run on a P&L of something like around £30,000 a year in, £30,000 out, and that is what we use to deliver our website, our biannual guides, promote the county, etc., etc.
It's really, really good, I have to say. Who does the artwork and the maps? Because they are, again, top class.
Yeah, so we use a company that's based in Ashwell, Nimble Media. Nimble Media, Vicky Bingley, who's on our committee, she owns the company.
Is that where Ashwell Prison used to be?
No,
there?
It's not. It's in the village. Turn left, you got the railway crossing. It's in those units just there.
Right.
But she has a freelance designer who does all our map work for us and creates the maps.
I've got to say to our listeners, I've lived in Rutland for 28 years, and I've looked at the website for the first time this afternoon and found about 10 things that I didn't know about.
It's very informative.
And I only glanced at it. It's one of the best websites I've ever been on. It's brilliant.
Thank you. Well, it's very informative, and there's a lot of content on there. Sometimes we look at it ourselves and think, my goodness, there's too much content on there. Probably never, you can't have too much, but sometimes you probably can navigation-wise. But yeah, you'll find everything out there. We've got a what's on diary. We rely very much on people telling us what's on. But again, I'd encourage anybody out there that's having events, etc., go onto the website. You can register your events with us. We'll put it on there because, the website, as you quite rightly pointed out, it's not just for visitors and people outside the area. We want locals to use it because it is very informative. You want to go out for a Sunday lunch, you want to go to a pub. We've got retailers on there, things to do, things like, it amazes me how many people I talk about Oakham Castle. I say, well, have you visited Oakham Castle? I've never been. Has Oakham got a castle? No, okay, it's not in a castle as we would probably imagine a castle, but it's very interesting. You go and look at all the horseshoes in the castle, and that's all on the website as well. In fact, talking about funding, we have recently received... We had to bid for some funding for the UK SBF Shared Prosperity Fund, and we were successful in a bid. So we've actually been working on some very exciting projects this year, which will be launching in the summer. So I'll be excited to be able to tell people all about that come the summer. But one of the things is we're updating all the signs in Oakham and Uppingham, so the visitor signs with sort of black cast iron, so we give visitors know exactly where to go. We're redesigning some of the maps. We're getting a new unit to take to our exhibition or to our event so we can promote the county. So we've done the heritage trail, so we've got 8 heritage trails around the county, which we've got cycle and walking routes, and that's where we're working with Gina.
What a segue.
Yeah.
That is the best segue I have heard. That's for a really long time.
You'd think you were professional.
So
you might even think we were professional.
You're our new recruit. No, we're working with Gina, who's from obviously the Outdoor Guide. So we're working in conjunction with them and collaborating with them so we can get more national exposure in terms of the walks that are available in Rutland. So it's an exciting time for Discover Rutland, and anybody that wants to get involved, trust me, we can find them a job.
We hope you enjoyed listening to this pub natter. In our next episode, which will be released very soon, we continue our chat with Jason and Gina. We do not make any money from these podcasts and present them purely to promote Rutland's watering holes and give a voice to local folk. You, yes, that's you, can help us by leaving a review on your preferred podcast platform. We prefer Apple, as that is where we have most listeners, but are happy to receive any reviews anywhere. Reviews help to increase our audience, which helps to promote Rutland. The theme music is by Tom Arnold. That was a Pub Natter broadcast.